He followed the Bigfoot Mother into the hidden valley. Bigfoot Family Saga Ep.2. They said the mountains swallowed those who dared to follow the Bigfoot's trail. That beyond the last ridge where maps turned blank and rivers froze mid-flow, there was a place untouched by man, a valley hidden beneath eternal mist. The rancher didn't believe in legends anymore. He believed in what he had seen, a mother's eyes in the storm, a mercy that rewrote everything he thought he knew about monsters. It had been months since that night. Spring had come to Frost Creek, but the snow in his heart hadn't melted. Every morning he looked toward the northern peaks, where the clouds gathered thick and low, as if guarding a secret. Sometimes at dusk he heard faint calls drifting from beyond those ridges, deep melodic, carried by the wind. He couldn't tell if they were memories or echoes. Either way, they were calling him. One night as he sat by the fire, the woven grass charm on his window began to sway, though the air was still. He looked up. The threads glowed faintly in the lamplight, the pattern shifting like something alive. And then he heard it, a single knock on the door. Not loud, not urgent, just one, soft and slow. He froze. When he opened the door, the wind rushed in, and on the snow outside lay a single feather, enormous silver gray, glimmering under the moon. Next to it, a trail of footprints led north into the mountains. He knew then what it meant. It wasn't over. She was calling him back. Acti chavi moi, the path north. The next morning he packed lightly food rope, an old compass, and the charm. He left the cabin door unlocked, a small note on the table. If anyone finds this place, tell them I went north following mercy. The trail was rough and narrow. By midday the forest thinned, giving way to ridges of rock glazed with frost. The wind howled through the pines like a living thing. He followed the footprints until they vanished under a curtain of mist. Ahead, the world turned gray, a fog so thick it seemed to hum. Every sound softened, every step felt heavier. He paused. "What am I doing?" he muttered. But the answer came not in words, only in a faint hum, distant, yet clear. The same melody she had sung to him by the river. He pressed on. Hours passed. At sunset, the mist began to glow with a strange blue light, as if the air itself carried memory. He reached a narrow pass between two cliffs' walls of ice, rising higher than any church spire, and there, carved into the stone, was a symbol, the same pattern woven into the charm. It pulsed faintly, breathing with the rhythm of the earth. He reached out and touched it. The stone shifted beneath his hand. A gust of wind burst through the canyon, and suddenly the air changed. The fog rolled aside, revealing a valley bathed in twilight. Rivers shimmered like glass, winding through fields of moss that glowed faint green. Strange birds circled overhead, silent, silver-winged, their feathers scattering light like snowflakes. He stood at the edge of the world, the hidden valley of Bigfoots. A shape moved in the distance, massive yet graceful. He could see them now, not one or two, but many. Tall, broad-shouldered figures moving through the haze like shadows made of dawn. Their fur caught the light in shades of gold, bronze, and ash. They weren't hiding. They were living. For the first time, the rancher felt small, not as a man discovering a secret, but as one stepping into something sacred. He took off his hat, bowed his head slightly. Then from the edge of the forest, one figure approached. She was smaller than the rest, a female, and when she came closer, he recognized her. The Bigfoot Mother. Her wound had healed. Her eyes were calm, brighter than he remembered. She stopped a few feet away, watching him with quiet recognition. Then from behind her, two young ones peeked out, their fur lighter, their eyes curious. He smiled softly. "You kept them safe." She blinked slowly as if to say yes. Then she turned and gestured for him to follow. They moved through the valley, past waterfalls that glowed like liquid moonlight, past trees older than time. Everywhere he looked, life pulsed in quiet rhythm, balanced, untouched, whole. He saw shelters built from stone and branches, markings on the ground like prayer circles. The air itself hummed, vibrating with a presence beyond words. Finally, they stopped at a wide clearing. At its center stood a massive tree, its trunk hollowed by age, but still alive, its roots sprawling like veins of light. She knelt beside it, touching the bark with reverence. Then she looked at him, eyes deep as oceans, and he understood without hearing a word. This was home. This was where she had wanted him to come. He whispered, "It's beautiful." She placed her hand over her chest, then pointed at him. A silent gesture. "Thank you." He nodded, overwhelmed. He wanted to speak, to ask questions, but all that came out was a whisper. "Why me?" She tilted her head almost like a smile. Then from the mist behind the great tree, another figure emerged, older, broader, his fur streaked with silver. The elder. His eyes glowed faint blue like the valley's light itself. He approached slowly, each step echoing with quiet power. When he stopped before the rancher, the world seemed to pause. The elder raised a hand and pressed it against the rancher's forehead. In that instant, the air pulsed and images flashed through his mind, the mother saving her young, the hunters fleeing the snow, melting the world, breathing again. And beneath it all, a voice deep, ancient, gentle mercy remembers. Act 2, The Choice. The elder's touch faded, but the echo of his voice remained. Mercy remembers. The rancher stumbled back, breath trembling. The images still burned behind his eyes, the storm, the fire, the look in her eyes that night. He realized he hadn't been chosen by chance. He was here for a reason. The Bigfoot Mother stood quietly beside him, her 2 children watching. She gestured toward the valley, its rivers glowing, its light soft as morning prayer. It wasn't a myth. It was a sanctuary. And for the first time he saw what the world could be, untouched by greed, unbroken by noise. He knelt, pressing his palm to the earth. It pulsed faintly warm, alive, like a heartbeat beneath the soil. "It's real," he whispered. "It's all real." The elder nodded slowly, then pointed toward the mountain ridge beyond the valley, toward the world the rancher had come from. A storm of smoke was rising in the distance. At first he thought it was thunderclouds. Then he smelled it fire. He froze. No. The Bigfoot Mother turned sharply, her nostrils flaring. She let out a low hum, urgent, fearful. The 2 young ones clung to her legs. The elder's eyes darkened. He spoke again, not in words, but in that deep, resonant tone that filled the air like a trembling drumbeat. And though the rancher couldn't understand the language, his heart translated it clearly. They are coming. He ran to the ridge. From the cliff's edge he saw them, trucks, headlights cutting through the trees, smoke rising from torches and engines, men shouting, radios crackling, hunters, loggers, maybe both. He knew that smell, diesel and arrogance. They had followed him. He gritted his teeth. They must have seen my trail. The Bigfoot Mother came beside him, gazing down at the invading lights. She made a deep sound, something between anger and grief. He looked at her. They'll burn everything they don't understand. Her gaze shifted to him, not in blame, but in question, as if asking, will you protect this too? He looked down at his hands, human hands scarred, trembling. He'd spent years building fences, cutting trees, taking from the land. But this valley, it was alive, sacred, and for the first time he didn't want to own it. He wanted to defend it. By dusk, the valley darkened under a blood-orange sky. Smoke drifted between the peaks, thick as fog. The Bigfoot tribe began to move quietly, swiftly, gathering their young. The elder gestured for the rancher to follow. They led him to a stone altar near the heart of the valley. There he saw carving scenes of firestorms and men with axes. At the bottom was a single phrase carved in ancient marks. "When the fire comes, the bridge will be built again." He touched the carving. "Bridge," he murmured. He looked up at the elder. Between worlds, the elder's eyes glowed faintly. He nodded once. That's when the first explosion echoed across the valley. A line of fire raced down the slope trees, igniting like matchsticks. The sky turned red. The Bigfoot Mother roared, her voice shaking the cliffs. Birds burst from the canopy. Rivers hissed as embers fell. The rancher turned to her. "We have to stop them before the fire reaches here." She looked toward the children, then back at him, her eyes full of trust. For the second time in his life, she placed her hand on his chest, a silent promise. He nodded. "Let's finish what we started." They climbed the ridge together, man and beast against the blaze. Smoke stung his eyes, heat scorched his lungs. Below, he could see the men pouring fuel, shouting orders, laughing as the fire spread. The rancher picked up a burning branch and hurled it into the nearest truck's tank. A deafening blast tore through the trees. The men scattered, cursing, panicked. He shouted over the roar of fire, "Get out! You don't belong here!" One man aimed a rifle. Before he could fire, a shadow descended from the smoke, the Bigfoot Mother. She moved like thunder, disarming, roaring, but never killing. Her blows were mercy, not vengeance. The rancher joined her, cutting the fuel lines, pushing barrels into the river. The current caught the flames, dragging them away from the valley's heart. Hours passed in chaos, smoke, shouting, rain of ash. Then finally, silence. The hunters fled. The trucks burned down to metal bones. The fire began to die. The rancher fell to his knees, gasping for air. Beside him, the Bigfoot Mother knelt, her fur blackened by soot, her eyes reflecting the glow of the dying embers. For a long time, neither moved. Only the crackle of fire and the low hum of the river filled the night. Rain came before dawn, soft, steady cleansing. It hissed against the ashes, turning smoke into steam. The valley shimmered under the gray light. Most of the forest had survived. The elder's tree still stood untouched, glowing faintly with blue light beneath the rain. The rancher leaned against a rock, exhausted. The Bigfoot Mother approached, carrying a charred piece of wood, the symbol from the altar now blackened but unbroken. She held it out to him. He hesitated, then took it. The moment he touched it, he felt a warmth spread through his palm, up his arm, into his heart. "The bridge will be built again," he whispered, "and I'll be part of it." The Bigfoot Mother looked at him one last time before leading her children back toward the valley's heart. As she walked, the first light of dawn broke through the clouds, spilling over her like a crown of silver. The elder watched from afar, silent and still. The bridge and farewell. The morning after the rain, the valley breathed again. Mist curled around the mountains like incense. The rivers gleamed with faint blue light, their surfaces scattered with floating embers from the night's fire, remnants of destruction carried away by mercy. The rancher walked through the valley slowly, each step sinking into the damp moss. Everywhere he looked, life was beginning again. Tiny shoots of green pressed through the ash. Birds returned, singing softly. Even the air smelled different, sweeter, alive. He stopped by the ancient tree, the one at the valley's heart. The elder stood there waiting, silent as stone, his fur streaked with rain. Beside him, the Bigfoot Mother and her two young knelt, their eyes reflecting the morning light. For a long time, none of them spoke. Words were too small for what had been shared. Finally, the rancher stepped forward and placed the charred altar symbol on the ground before them. The rain had cleaned it, revealing faint lines beneath the soot. A pattern. A bridge. He looked up at the elder. "You said the bridge would be built again." The elder nodded once, then turned to the Bigfoot Mother. She placed her hand upon the symbol, then reached for his hand and guided it to rest beside hers. The ground beneath them shimmered, light blooming from the soil, flowing outward like roots made of gold. The rancher gasped softly. "What is this?" The elder's deep voice filled the air like a drumbeat of the earth itself. Connection between what is seen and what is remembered. The light spread across the clearing, weaving a faint path of glowing lines from the tree to the ridge, from the ridge to the world beyond. The bridge. Not made of wood or stone, but of faith, understanding, and mercy. The rancher stood in awe. "I didn't come here to build anything," he whispered. "I came because I couldn't forget her." The elder replied in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "And that is how all bridges begin." As the day unfolded, the valley filled with quiet activity. The Bigfoot tribe gathered near the waterfalls, cleaning debris, tending to the wounded. The rancher helped, carrying stones, fetching water, doing what little he could. Every time he passed the Bigfoot Mother, she would glance at him, a look of quiet gratitude, of shared purpose. By midday, the mist began to lift. The world beyond the mountains shimmered faintly through the veil of light. It was time. He knew it even before the elder approached. The Ancient One placed a massive hand on his shoulder, eyes solemn but kind. "Your world will not remember this place," the elder said, "but it will remember you." He swallowed hard. "I don't deserve that." The elder tilted his head. "Those who think they do, never do." The Bigfoot Mother approached carrying something wrapped in leaves. She unrolled it carefully. Inside was the woven charm, now repaired and stronger, its threads reinforced with silver fibers that glowed in the light. She placed it around his wrist. Then, with slow grace, she touched his heart with one hand and the ground with the other. Her hum began low, soft, filled with warmth. The same melody he had heard the night she returned. But now it sounded like farewell. His throat tightened. He wanted to speak, to say something, but his voice broke. So he simply nodded. And in that silence a promise passed between them, not in words, but in light. He would keep their secret. He would guard their valley. He would remember. The elder led him to the ridge where the valley opened toward the human world. The mist there shimmered like glass. He turned one last time to look behind him at the glowing rivers, at the children playing near the tree, at the Bigfoot Mother, watching quietly from the shadows. For a moment their eyes met across the distance. He lifted his hand in goodbye. She mirrored the gesture. The wind rose gently between them, carrying a single note of her song. It lingered in the air, even after she was gone. He stepped through the mist, and just like that, the valley disappeared. The world beyond returned cold air, gray skies, snow crunching beneath his boots. Only the faint hum in his ears told him it had been real. He found himself standing near his cabin again weeks later, or maybe minutes. He couldn't tell. Time moved differently between worlds. The cabin was untouched, though the lamp had burned out. On the table lay the same note he had left. "I went north following mercy." He smiled faintly, folded it, and placed it in his coat pocket. Outside, twilight descended once more. He lit a small fire and sat quietly, listening to the wind move through the trees. The woven charm on his wrist caught the firelight, glowing softly alive. He whispered, "You kept your promise, and I'll keep mine." There are places the world was never meant to find. Valleys hidden not by distance but by grace, where every tree breathes mercy and every river remembers those who chose compassion over fear. A faint silhouette moves through the fog, the Bigfoot Mother walking beside the elder beneath the silver light. Her children run ahead, laughing, the sound blending with the wind. The bridge between worlds is not made of stone or faith, but of simple acts of kindness that echo long after we're gone. The camera pans upward, the mountains fading into cloud, the valley glowing faintly below like a pulse beneath the earth. Fade to black. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to follow the next chapter, The Rancher's Promise, only on Bigfoot Tales.